Welcome to It's a Sublime Life. Inspiration on living an excellent life and seeing the beauty already in life. You can find It's a Sublime Life on most social media platforms. Just search for It's a Sublime Life. Welcome to It's a Sublime Life. I'm your host, Hayley. On the show today, we've got Cesar Gamio. He's very accomplished. He is an expert in well-being, working with clients in the corporate setting and also on a one-to-one. Would you like to say a bit about yourself?
Oh, where should I start?
Well, you have, for example, I'm looking at the list of things that you've accomplished on LinkedIn. What about your life coach certificate, corporate wellness solutions specialist, and all these lovely things there?
All right. Well, first and foremost, I have a background in business, and I worked in the corporate sector in IT for about 20 years. And very early on in my career, I was, living life like a normal, 20-year-old boy. Basically not getting much sleep, and not exercising as much, not eating well, not spending mindful time with family and friends. So not really looking after myself, just, working hard and living hard. And that finally caught up with me, when I was in my late 20s. I had a massive bout of acute stress that led me into, really digging deep and really understanding how can I keep performing at the level that I'm performing without having to undermine my physical, mental, and emotional integrity in the process. And so this was the year 2000, and I started exploring, worlds that are familiar to you, the worlds of yoga, meditation, Ayurveda. I'm just, exploring different wisdom traditions. And I finally realized that, just by making certain adjustments to my lifestyle and to my work style, and just by holding certain principles in mind, I could basically achieve, whatever I wanted to achieve without having to forego my health in the process. And so I was born and raised in Peru, and this process actually started there. And when I came to England in 2008, 2008, I think it was, I basically started making the transition out of the world of corporate IT into the space of corporate well-being, because at the time I was very familiar, like I'm now still, of what the pains are and the struggles are that my colleagues were facing in the industry, but at the same time I had the solutions for that. And I started, basically doing some, I wasn't a coach back then, but I was offering some light coaching, and I was, doing talks and stuff. And then I realized that, that I could do this, professionally and on a full-time basis. So I became, a coach, and then I became a consultant as well. And now I've been doing this for about the past 10 years. So basically what I do are three things, Hayley. Number one, I'm a well-being consultant, and what that means is that I help companies design well-being strategies to raise the level of employee well-being and at work. Number two, I'm an executive life coach, so I help people attain any kind of personal and professional development goals that they set for themselves. And number three, I'm a public speaker, so I do keynotes, and I do half-day sessions, full-day sessions on everything that's connected on, how to, get the most out of ourselves and live a more, joyful, centered, balanced, inspiring, and fulfilling life. That's basically what I do.
Great. So that's the history of it as well. I mean, you don't just call yourself these things. You actually qualified in these things, and have fantastic experience doing this as well. You're an executive life coach certified by the European Mentoring Coaching Council and a corporate wellness solution specialist certified by the Corporate Health and Wellness Association. You have your Senior Chopra Centre for Wellbeing Instructor certified by Dr. Deepak Chopra as Wellbeing Centre. And serve as a senior advisor to the Global Centre for Conscious Leadership with the base in London. As you say, you mentioned your history in the corporate sphere. You've demonstrated your consulting in executive life coaching, stress management, dealing effectively with change, work-life balance coaching, mindfulness, and mindful leadership. And all that, what impressed me as well is these massive global companies as well that you've worked with, L'Oreal, Accenture. There's a whole list here, but The Body Shop, Vodafone, so spanning lots of different industries as well, but big companies. So you kind of know what you're talking about. I would say.
I hope.
I guess when you come into these companies, how do you, is there ever a point where, I mean, we were talking about a balance. So how do you balance getting the most out of the employees in terms of their performance? I suppose, is there ever a situation where it also has to be managed from the other side? Okay, maybe there is too much for this one person to do within the company. Is there, are there two sides that you have to manage often, or?
Yeah, so usually when I do work with clients, companies need to understand that obviously work needs to be done on both ends. So first and foremost, the individual is responsible for himself or herself. That's at the top of the list. No matter what services or what infrastructure the company provides to raise the level of well-being, if the individual doesn't want to do something about his or her level of well-being, then there's nothing to do. I mean, there's so many companies nowadays that offer gym facilities and good canteen services, so proper nutrition but if you still want to have your bacon butty and if you want to have a cigarette and if you don't show up to the gym, what's the point? So there is a combination of things that need to be done at both ends, but it's the individual's it's the individual's responsibility that I try to emphasize first and foremost. And obviously, companies need to facilitate an environment in which the person can fulfill his or her potential, right? So yeah, I have to work on both ends, definitely.
I'm aware that I suppose more of your expertise is in the corporate space. With someone that's self-employed, well, for example, like myself, I often, the balance keeps tipping, then one side to the other, then one side to the other. Maybe I've pushed myself too hard to try and do something for the business, and I've let myself not do as much self-care as I need to, or maybe the other way around, where okay, I need to focus now back into the business. And I guess my question would be, how do you know, I guess it's a feeling, but how would you know, yes, it's tipped too much one way, no, it's tipped again the other way? Do you see what I mean? Or
Absolutely. I mean, you have to listen to your body. That's the most important thing. Your body will actually tell you if you are overdoing, any of the aspects of your life that you need to juggle. And And life is quite dynamic, and especially people in my business or any business in general, which are people that are basically doing more than two things as a profession. They need to really pay attention, be fully aware every day of where life is taking them and how they're feeling about it. So, in my particular case, it's very easy for me to overdo what I do in terms of, the coaching and in terms of the public engagements. And I have to travel quite a bit. I usually average about 20 to 22 countries a year. And that takes a lot of, flying and basically, transatlantic or transoceanic flying as well. So I have to deal with jet lag. So, one has to be quite ruthless in making sure that you strike that balance, but the key word here, Haley, is awareness. You just have to be aware of what your body's telling you. You have to be aware of how your week will, unfold. You have to make sure that you are actually, taking care of the basics, and the basics are, that you're getting restful sleep, that you're able to incorporate movement, every day, during the week, that you get to eat, properly, nutritious, whole foods, that you get to find, slots throughout the day that, to engage in exercises that allow you to manage stress effectively. Make sure that you allocate time to nurture your, healthy relationships in your life. And something that's, becoming very important lately is, ways of grounding yourself as well. And so as long as you are paying attention to those basics, and as long as you're aware of what your body is telling you, and as long as you stay on that path of making sure that those 6 basic elements are are right, then you should be okay. And it does. And I've met a lot of people who are very passionate about what they do, but that they confuse, and then that passionate sometimes takes over, and then that they start becoming sleep deprived, or they don't eat properly, and that's when the imbalances begin. And once those imbalances kick in, then they're not able to really enjoy their passions as much. But unfortunately, in most cases, it takes people to experience pain in order to make the necessary adjustments or changes. Very rarely. I mean, I would say that only 10% of the people that I coach come to me to say, you know what, I'm doing absolutely fantastic, I just want to do better. 90% are have some kind of struggle. And that's fine. We all have struggles. But it's just a matter of really paying attention to those basics that I just told you about.
One of my things at the moment is, and you've mentioned it, sleep. And this is where I push myself and I think, I'll just do this, I'll just do that, I'll just do the other. And it's getting later and later and later. And I'm fully aware that that's what I do. But I haven't quite nipped it in the bud yet, in terms of, okay, I recognize this is what I'm doing. I've put things in place to try and help me. I have this app, and there's lots of sleep stories on there, and which really helps. And I don't know what else I need to do to get myself into bed and asleep. How would I, for example, do you have any sort of tips in that area when somebody is aware of something? And is it about, this is what I wonder, is it about accepting that you can only do a certain amount in that day that is sustainable, that is healthy for yourself, and that's absolutely, it's acceptance. You need to go to bed at this time, and that's it. You might, in the long run, I guess it's in the long run, isn't it? And sustainability element of it, you will not progress in the way you want to. I guess it is, isn't it? It's acceptance. I think I've answered my own question there.
But specifically, what are your issues with sleep, Haley?
It's not that I think it's habit. It's not that I'm lying there worrying about anything. I think it's a habit that I've got to bed later and later, and then now my body is kind of used to that maybe, and doesn't therefore feel tired at that time anymore, because that's what it's used to, going to bed later and later. So I'm not worrying about anything. I think, if anything, it's that desire to just get ahead, and it's usually I'm doing bits and bobs for my business. Mm-hmm. And not accepting. No, I really need to go to bed now.
What time are you going to sleep now? Or lately?
It's not mega. It's not mega. I don't suppose it's mega late by anyone else's standard, but it is late to my standards. So it's 11 or 12, and I really need more sleep than 7.5 hours. That's just not. It won't cut for me. And I experience, as soon as I dip below 8 hours, then the next day it's the emotional side of things that is impacted. I can't focus properly, etc. So it's not necessarily the physical side, but it's the emotional side first that I noticed. That's not quite 100%.
It's not quite 100% when you get 8 hours of sleep. Did I hear that right? Or
if I get less than 8 hours,
if you get less than 8 hours.
Yeah.
And
I really, ideally, I probably need 9.
So, I mean, if you are over 18, okay, all human beings need between 7 to 9 hours when you pass the 18-year mark. Obviously, when you're younger, you need more hours of sleep, because that's when we grow, and for other, number of reasons as well. But I once heard a scientist, a sleep scientist, referred to, those people that only get by with 5 or 6 hours, and that they claim they're working at their best and they're operating at their best, and he said that, that's a bunch of rubbish, because those people that claim that, they're operating at their best when they're getting 5 to 6 hours of sleep, what science says is that they've resetted their baseline. What does that mean? So let's say, Haley, that you are super professional, and when you're operating at your best, at your real best, you operate on a scale from 0 to 10 out of 10. That's your best, right? Yeah. But if you start sleep depriving yourself, and let's say that you only get 5 or 6 hours, you might start operating at 6 out of 10. But after a while, that 6 out of 10 normalizes in you, okay? And then you think that the 6 is actually a 10.
Yeah. That's
what scientists, refer to as baseline resetting. So you've resetted your performance baseline down to a 6. But when you start aligning your sleep patterns, and when you start getting restful sleep, then all of a sudden you see, oh my gosh, where did this come from? Where did this energy come from? Where did this clarity come from? Where did this emotional stability come from? Where did this resilience come from? And I can tell you, most of the people that I coach, basically, when I, even when we make 30-minute adjustments, because of, if some people that I coach only get 6, and when they start getting 6 hours and 30 minutes, they can feel the difference, and then when they make the jump to 7 and 7:30, it's like, oh my gosh, where did all of this come from? And they're better able to express their potential. So something that I try to communicate to people is that we cannot negotiate with nature.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, and I've had people say to me, I wish that they had 28 hours, or I wish we didn't need that much sleep. But hey, we've been around in this world for 3 million years as human beings. And for 3 million years, we've basically followed the same, sleep patterns. And really what screwed up our sleep patterns were 2 inventions. The invention of the light bulb, the incandescent light bulb in the late 1800s. Mm-hmm. And then and what we know as the standard time, the 24-hour clock format. And now we are, we were very dark deprived in this society. For millions of years, there were periods, of the day which was completely dark. So it was easier for our body to adjust to our circadian rhythms. But now with all the light, I mean, it's very hard, for our body to start, to discern whether it's daytime or whether it's nighttime. And it has really messed up our sleep. And now with, obviously, with the advent of technology and all these mobile phones and tablets and so forth, and Netflix and all these terms. What's the term for Netflix? What do you call it? Big. When you watch a series?
Oh, binge watching.
Binge
is that
watching,
what? Yes.
Binge watching, I mean, that term is fairly new, and that's been, really messing with our sleep pattern. And the thing is that there's not a single cell and fiber of our being which is not impacted by sleep. Every cell in our body is impacted by the quality of our sleep, for better or for worse. Every single cell. I mean, there's nothing that sleep it doesn't influence in our mind-body system. So and I'm really happy that you have the awareness of knowing how you feel when you get less than 7 hours or 7:30 a night, because that's a start, Hayley. That's a starting point. It's how you feel. Remember what we talked about? Listen to your body. And now you're aware that if you get less than 7 hours and 30 minutes, people are not getting the best of you. And that's a very good sign, because awareness is the starting point. Next point is, what the heck am I going to do about this? And that's when you have to, start making trade-offs. Okay, so should I still, spend an hour and a half, browsing through my social media before I go to sleep? So how about, instead of an hour and a half, how about I bring it down to an hour and I get 30 minutes more of sleep? And then you start, making those trade-offs. And in order for behavior change to become sustainable, definitely what helps is tiny changes at first. So there's no way that, if you are using social media for an hour and a half before going to sleep, that you're going to go from an hour and a half to 10 minutes. That's not going to happen. But if you start making, 15-minute adjustments, every week, you most likely the change will be sustainable. Or if you start looking over, organizing yourself in a way in which, okay, I'm going to check my social media 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the afternoon, and 15 minutes in the evening, and then you get your fix 3 times a day, then, that might work for you. But again, the bottom line is we cannot negotiate with nature, but we can negotiate with ourselves in terms of how can we arrange our day to better serve our needs.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that you cannot negotiate with nature. And it is what you say, it's making trade-offs. And the most basic trade-off there would be, do I stay up another hour working on my business? Or do I have a great day tomorrow?
But that's,
and that's it.
But that's the thing, Hayley. You might say to yourself, okay, I'm going to give my business an extra hour, but that extra hour will have an impact in the next 24 hours. You're going to be moody. You're going to be, devoid of, of energy, and you're going to be a bit more stressed. So your whole day or the next 48 hours could be impacted just by that decision. I mean, and I do understand. I mean, sometimes you have to, invest that extra hour. I do that myself. Sometimes, I'm flying to a customer engagement or a client engagement, and then I realize, oh my gosh, I think they would benefit from this particular piece of information. And then I get to the hotel and I sacrifice perhaps 30 minutes, 45 minutes, but it's my choice. You see, that's a choice that I make. Yeah. And then, okay, I'm going to have to adjust my morning routine because I need to get, I need to recuperate that time. But that doesn't happen every day. It just happens in certain moments. So, but as long as a choice is a conscious choice, then that's fine. But if you're making just, those choices out of habit, then there's no point. I just, this happened to me recently, actually. I came up with an idea that I really wanted to incorporate in a client engagement, and then I had to make a decision. If I do this, my delivery will suffer tomorrow, but I'll get the experience. Or my delivery could be, quite good, and I'll just save this module for the next time, And then I decided, you know what, I think I'd rather give them my best tomorrow, and perhaps in the future, if I get to engage with them again, which I did, I'll incorporate this new piece of information. But you have to ask yourself those questions, and you have to make those decisions, and you have to be aware of the impact of those decisions as well. Not just, live unconsciously and unaware,
Yeah. So ask yourself always, what are the trade-offs this evening if I do this? Yeah. I like that. And I guess one of the things that I've picked up on your website as well, you talk about physical well-being, mental well-being, and spiritual awakening. And I think does that link back to Deepak Chopra, Ayurveda maybe? What benefit does an individual have of spiritual awakening, and does that always necessarily mean religion?
Yeah, that's a good question, Hayley, and it depends. So spirituality doesn't necessarily involve religion. It's just that religion have actually taken certain aspects of spirituality and incorporated those aspects into their dogma and into their doctrine. The way I see spirituality myself, I'm not a religious person. I was born and raised Catholic, but there was a time when I was in my late teenagers that I stopped saying that I was not a practicing Catholic, because it's like saying I'm a vegetarian but I eat meat. I'm not a practicing vegetarian. What the heck does that mean? So and then when I realized that and this is just a completely personal view, okay, that religion to me was more about following a specific dogma or specific doctrine, and then adjusting my beliefs to those, to that doctrine and that dogma. When I discovered spirituality was about, really unveiling, reality in a more experiential kind of way, really understanding, what's behind the curtain, not through fixed beliefs, but through your own experience and through your own through the expansion of your own consciousness. So the more you expand your consciousness, the more you understand, what fundamental reality is, and and then you understand that, so you start asking yourself questions like, who am I? Where do I come from? How can I serve? Am I just this, ego encapsulated in this skin that people call Cesar, or am I, something bigger than that? So, started shifting my perception from my ego self into my more expanded self, the universal side of me. I started exploring ways of how to, again, create that shift in my internal reference point, so that I could feel that I'm, part of the universe, and not just, an individual living its own life. And that led for me to be, I hope, more empathetic and more compassionate, because once you realize, once you have the experiential realization that you are basically a unique manifestation of the entire field of energy that the universe is, and that you are one unique manifestation of that. But in essence, we are one and the same. Is that you manifest as Haley in Stoke-on-Trent, and I manifest as Cesar in, I live in Hampshire now, right? But deep down, we are part of the same energy field that, binds the universe together. And then, so getting, expanding my understanding of that, not just, theoretically, but experientially, that's what I call spirituality in a way, so. Okay. Sorry to make this a long answer, but I did want to differentiate the two aspects, between being religious and being spiritual. So religious is about following dogma and doctrine. Spirituality is about expanding your consciousness to really understand who you are, where you come from, and how to serve. Okay,
so if I got this sort of right then. I think it's understood widely now that the mind and body is kind of working together. And for me, when we talk about consciousness, that is another level up, if you like. And it's almost like the body and the mind doesn't exist without the consciousness. And that if you take a step up into this consciousness, and almost look at yourself, look at your mind and body, you can gain a kind of perspective. Or is that my interpretation of it? Or
yeah, I mean, the weird thing is that for a number of years, people have believed, and some people still believe, that consciousness is a byproduct of our brains. So our brain, so that consciousness is the epiphenomenon. So our brain produces consciousness. Once, the brain ceases to exist, then obviously consciousness goes away with it. But I mean, there are now tens of thousands of registered cases of people having near-death experiences in which they are pronounced clinically dead, and but their consciousness actually is still awake, and they're able to see themselves in the operating table, and they're able to see themselves, clinically dead, on the hospital bed or in the car crash or wherever they are, and then when they're resuscitated, they come back, and then they can fully remember every single detail from the moment they were clinically dead until the moment they were resuscitated. So, I mean, there's very, hard evidence that shows that consciousness basically survives physical death. So that raises the question, what comes first, consciousness, the mind, the body? And I think that, in the end, the mind and the body are an expression of consciousness in a way. We are consciousness before we are born. Our consciousness, resides, within. So, as a silent witness of our experience. And then when we pass, our consciousness goes on and, to the next stage of evolution, and whatever that is.
Mm. And I guess if you immediately don't recognize yourself as either religious or spiritual, just sort of exploring those concepts, if you like, for me, I suppose I'm talking about, it can just bring some perspective on things, a fresh idea on how to look at things. It's at first, it's a big concept to grasp, I think, for a lot of people, especially if they're not religious or have any religious background. It can be a leap to understand spiritualness, consciousness. I suppose they can sort of, if they want more on that as well. Deepak Chopra does go into it a bit, doesn't he? I believe you've met him, and obviously you've got a qualification that he does. How would you describe him and his philosophy, and how that feeds into helping one's well-being at work and in their personal lives?
Well, first and foremost, I mean, I know Deepak quite well. I've known him since the year 2000, and I trained under him, and I spent quite a bit of time with him. And he would be the first one to admit that he hasn't really come up with anything new. Really, what he's been doing for the past, 3 decades is helping translate, what wisdom traditions have been saying, all along, about a number of different things. And, mostly in connection to, the fundamental reality and who we are and where we come from. And obviously that has, those bodies of wisdom, have a component that apply to our, day-to-day well-being. And Deepak's journey has been quite interesting because, he was the first, one of the first people to start really trying to persuade, or not trying to persuade, but trying to let people, trying to help people become aware of the mind-body connection. Why two patients, with exactly the same diagnosis, one would get better and the other one would get worse. And he actually witnesses through his own, medical practice. And then when he started digging a little deeper, he realized that the people that had healthy emotional relationships in their life and the people that had purpose and meaning, were the people, that were the ones that would get better. And the other people that had the same diagnosis that would have stress in their lives, unhealthy relationships, etc., would get worse. So your mental state, would have a massive influence in your well-being. And back then, science was very mechanistic. If you had depression, that was because of a chemical imbalance. It had nothing to do with your relationships, nothing to do with your sense of belonging, your sense of purpose. It was just a chemical imbalance that should be corrected with these pills. And there's still a big what do you call it? Segment of people, that think like that. But now science is catching up really, and now the mind-body connection is more recognized more than ever. And I think first and foremost, he's been the pioneer in making more people aware of the mind-body connection. How can we heal our bodies? How can we live a more fulfilled life? By recognizing that connection. Lately, he's been investing more time in just going deeper and really trying to unveil fundamental reality. Trying to explain, the origin of things and what reality really is, behind the curtains. Because for us, reality is what we see every day. When we wake up, the bills that we have to pay, the work that we have to get done. That's imminent reality. He's now, investing a lot of time in trying to help people understand what transcendental reality is, so what's behind the curtain. And like you said, it's not a topic that you can you can easily understand straight away, because we've developed all these we've been building up our conditioning from very early on about what the world is. And then I'm going back to the topic of studying this, or my suggestion would be, I think the best course of action is to have the experience first, and then you read about it to kind of understand, oh, this is what it means. So for instance, people that have a regular meditation practice, if they are consistent with their practice, they'll soon realize their awareness will begin to expand, and then we'll start experiencing more intuition, more creativity. They'll start experiencing more, synchronicities, meaningful coincidences. They'll start feeling that they are part of something larger than themselves. So they will go through this inner shift, and they will go through a number of different realizations as part of their spiritual development. And so it's great, to have the experience first, and then they can go ahead and buy the books, read, Vedic philosophy, or any kind of wisdom tradition, and they'll begin to understand, oh yeah, this is what I'm feeling. This is the reason why. This is the theory behind it. Because if you just get caught up in the theory, I mean, what's the point? I mean, I'd rather experience it first and then gain a more theoretical understanding. And by the way, not everything can be explained. I mean, there are things that are explainable, and there are things that are completely, not what do you call it? Not explainable, unfathomable. I mean, it's the way it is. And there's certain things that perhaps we might never know. But like I said, Haley, my suggestion is just walk the path. Start where you feel, more comfortable with. You're a yoga teacher, so yoga, it's a great start. Meditation, self-inquiry, any kind of spiritual practice that will expand your awareness will help.
Great. Is everything that what we've just been, I know I looked into this a few years ago, but I need a refresher of what it means. Ayurveda?
Yeah. The science of life. So it's the oldest well-being system in that we know of, and it's a consciousness-based well-being system. This is a system that basically recognizes first and foremost, the mind-body connection, and obviously, within the system, people are categorized in different what they call mind-body constitutions. So depending on certain aspects of your consciousness, then your body will react in specific ways, and there are ways to improve your well-being by paying attention to what you eat, to what you listen to everything that goes into your senses. So depending on your mind-body constitution, then Ayurveda recommends certain experiences or certain types of food or whatsoever in order to increase your well-being. But again, it always goes back to the mind-body connection.
Okay. Is this something else, or is this Ayurveda, the 4 doshas?
3 doshas.
Yeah.
Vata,
yeah.
Kapha, and Pitta. Yeah. So that's your mind-body constitution. So and to identify your doshas, it's fairly straightforward. You just fill out a little questionnaire that asks you about your physical attributes and kind of your mental inclinations and certain things about your body, and then you're able to determine which is the primary mind-body constitution that you have, because most people have a combination of both, of 2 or 3. So at the end of the when you fill out the questionnaire, you actually get 3 scores, and the score that's highest, basically that's your predominant mind-body constitution, but because you still score some points in the other 2 sometimes, and depending on what that constitution is, then Ayurveda has certain recommendations in connection to nutrition, in connection to how to influence your senses to improve your well-being. So, for instance, someone that is categorized as a Vata, V-A-T-A, mind-body constitution, mentally is someone who is quite can get easily distracted. These people are very, very creative. They're very innovative, but they're quite distracted, and sometimes they forget to eat. And sometimes they forget to nourish themselves, and sometimes they forget to recharge. They're usually quite slim. They have very thin, joints, and they get rashes quite frequently. So again, seeing the mind-body, relationship in that particular person, there are certain things that Ayurveda suggests. Like, for instance, people that have this Vata mind, again, people that are easily distracted and they're not able to really focus and concentrate for a longer period of time, Ayurveda will recommend certain types of food to be able to ground their mind. So by eating certain foods, that would make their minds less flickery. Is that a word?
I think that's quite a good word.
Yeah. And there are certain types of oils and certain types of scents that will allow them to become more grounded. The Pitta type, for instance, the type that I am in Ayurveda, that's the fire sign, and basically people that have a Pitta predisposition, are very intense. They charge forward. They're quite energetic, and they expend a lot of energy. They're usually built, in quite, just a regular size, medium size. They and for instance, someone that's and there's the dark side and the light side of the Pitta. If my Pitta goes unbalanced, then I can become very aggressive, and I can become very overwhelming, and I've noticed that in myself, So Ayurveda, what sometimes suggests is, again, certain types of food and certain types of oils and certain types of practices that allow me to actually keep my Pitta in check, And again, it's all coming back to the awareness point, it's about being aware of what your mind-body constitution is, what kind of behaviors you're more, inclined to engage in, within that mind-body constitution. What kind of thought patterns are you more inclined to engage in, based on that mind-body constitution, and how to make sure that you course correct that, through these recommendations. I, discovered Ayurveda very early on, actually, and so I knew about my doshas very early on, and I realized that there were certain things that I was doing that back then that were not helping me in terms of, keeping those in check, or keeping my, those aspects of my life in check. So it was quite fun to be able to determine, how to influence my, my thinking and my behaviors and my way of being just by following those recommendations. And this, like I said, this is wisdom that goes back, thousands of years. And it's been quite fun.
Yeah, I see that in you, actually. I see all of that in you. Is one of the downside of your doshas is that to hit burnout too fast, too frequently? Is that?
Yeah.
Is it the intensity part of it?
Yeah, the pittas are the first ones to burn out, actually.
Yeah, I see a bit of that in myself, actually, as well.
Yeah, and that's why we have to, we have to be careful. The kaphas, the kaphas that's the earth symbol, and kaphas are too grounded, and sometimes because they're too grounded, they become very lethargic, and obviously that might lead to not, exercising, eating more than they usually should. So I'm Pitta Kapha, actually. So it creates a balancing effect in me. But if I go unchecked, I can easily slide into the Kapha side of things. So so just out of curiosity, you noticed a Pitta element in me. What was that? Or how did that?
Just the intensity, just the getting things done, your achievements, even the way you have written your sort of profile on LinkedIn, very methodical, punctual, shows all the achievements, driven. Am I right? Is it of those things part of that dosha?
Yeah, definitely so. I'm the kind of guy that likes to. I'm super practical and super pragmatic, and that's why I think my coaching clients like me, because they come with their particular context, and I help them to clarify, because sometimes they come and they don't know what they want. They just have this nagging, they feel unsettled and unbalanced, but they cannot just put their finger on it. And my Pitta and my practicality comes in. Okay, let's actually get clarity on what is it that you want. And then once we get clarity, let's get you there. If my Pitta were to go unchecked, I would be not very compassionate. I would be just very straightforward, which I am with my clients, but I try to be as compassionate as I can, because everyone's doing their best at the level of consciousness in which they're in. So, but like I said, I'm aware that my Pitta can go unchecked.
Another thing that made me think, yes, you'll like that saying, is when we arranged our this podcast, you were very decisive, very efficient in how you wanted to arrange it. I think you said, right, yes to the podcast, but then shall we do it on Zoom? We'll do it on Zoom. And I was sort of, we'll video it, even though I hadn't videoed a podcast before. This is the first one. We'll video it on Zoom. And I sort of thought, it's a good idea. Okay. And then you sent me a link to please book yourself in at one of these times. I'll look forward to it or whatever. And it was another link, and I could choose just exactly which slot I needed or was suitable for me as well. And I thought, yes, I was impressed by it actually.
It's become part of my DNA now. And obviously I use technology to my advantage, and it helps. And because as you saw, we didn't exchange 25 emails to determine what's the best time for you and me. And
it was good. It's good.
So and I apologize if I show up too intense, but it's not intensity. It's just if I'm really careful about how I spend my time and who I spend it with. But once I make that decision, then I just go with it. I don't dabble. I just do it or don't. I love Star Wars. Have you seen Star Wars, Hayley?
I have, yes. Not the latest ones though.
No, but the first ones.
Yes, yes.
So when Luke Skywalker was training to use the Force, and
yes, yeah.
And Yoda told Luke, and there is what he said. Exactly. What was it? Oh yeah, there's no trying. You either do it or you either do it.
I remember that actually. I remember that part. But yeah.
That to me is the same thing. I have my list of things that I have to do today, for instance. And I've circled the ones that that I have to do, the ones that are optional, and the ones that I might do if I have a bit of a break. And I just get things done, and I get things done for me, for my clients. But it's taken a while to be organized. And I don't really, and I think I something that might serve you as well. I'm fine if I don't finish something. So if it's 9:45 and usually I go to bed at that time, if I didn't get something finished, I'm completely fine with the incompletion, as long as I look at my list and I say, okay, you know what? These were really the important things, and this I managed to do. And okay, yeah, something happened, and I just couldn't get around to do that. But I'm fine with incompletions. What I'm not fine with is disappointing people, particularly clients. I mean, that to me, my coaching clients and my corporate clients, I mean, they mean the world to me, because they've decided to to put their trust on me, to help them with, with something. And that's my main focus. But sorry, I'm just apologize.
No, I can see that.
My intensity, scared you a little.
Oh, no, you don't have to apologize. I was impressed, not scared. So that's all good. So if someone would like help from you, whether it be a corporate or just an individual, I know you have online courses. Do you want to tell us a bit about their online courses? And
yeah, I'm going to start revamping those courses. I want to start upgrading my online platform. But the best way, if someone wants to, reach out to me, just go onto my website. It's my name, Cesargamio, so cesargamio.com. And just like, most people do, or via LinkedIn as well. And, just like you did, send me a message and say, hey, you know what, I'd like to, talk to you about a, potential coaching, opportunity. And usually what I do is I have what is known as a discovery session, in which we basically, get together via video call, and that's when we assess, whether I can help or not. There are situations in which I cannot help, or there are situations in which I've decided not to take clients on because, one thing that's really important to me is that people are committed to the process of change. Sometimes I get people that have been told that they need to get some help, and they reluctantly reach out. And once I notice that there's this, reluctancy, then I just, say no, thank you, and thank you for, reaching out, and that's it, really. So that's why I like to have kind of a bit of a short conversation to assess whether we're the right fit for each other, because, perhaps someone gets to know me, and after 10 minutes decides that I'm a bit of a jerk, and there's no chemistry, and that's absolutely fine. I've been in situations like that, and it's absolutely fine. to me, the most important thing is that once someone entrusts me with their development, they are the focus of my attention, for the period in which we're going to be working together. Yeah.
Great. So they can go to your website, reach out to you on LinkedIn. So is there anything else that you would like to get across in this podcast that we haven't already spoke about?
Yeah. If you really want to live a happy, fulfilled, joyful life, just make sure that you are living your purpose, and make sure that you are and living your purpose means really knowing what your strengths are, and what you're good at, and making sure that what you're good at, you are using those strengths to be of service. And once you're being of service by using the strengths that you have as a person, make sure that you follow and you pay attention to those 6 aspects of your well-being that you should be making sure that are very much aligned. So sleep, movement, nutrition, effective stress management, healthy emotional relationships, and grounding. So live your purpose. Make sure you look after yourself whilst you're being of service, and enjoy what has been given to you, which is this life.
Yeah, that's nice. So it's called It's a Sublime Life. What makes life sublime for you?
What makes life sublime? To me, the progressive realization of worthy goals, and the ability to feel compassion, love, and being connected to the creative source of the universe. That's what living a sublime life is for me.
That is a beautiful way to end. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I've really, really enjoyed talking with you. I hope to speak again soon.
All right. Same here, Hayley.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.